My name is Eric Lindberg. I am 40 years old and I have dedicated my life to protecting animals across the world. I am a biologist and founder of a wildlife rescue organization based in Europe. I have freed a young elephant from a poacher's trap in Kenya, while its mother watched me with desperate eyes. I have rescued a whale calf tangled in fishing nets in the freezing waters of Norway. To learn more about my adventures, subscribe to my channel and leave a like. And let's go. This story takes place in one of the most remote places on Earth, an Arctic research station in northern Svalbard. I have been stationed here for 3 weeks, studying polar bear migration patterns across the frozen sea. Tonight, a violent snowstorm rages outside, and the temperature has dropped to -40 degrees. I sit alone inside the station, reviewing data on my laptop when I hear something unusual. A heavy thud against the metal door of the station, followed by another and another. I stand up slowly, my heart pounding, unsure what could be outside in this deadly weather. I approach the door carefully and look through the small frozen window. My breath stops. A massive female polar bear stands at the door, her white fur covered in ice and snow. She is not attacking. She is pressing her body against the door, her dark eyes looking directly at me. I notice her belly, swollen and heavy. This polar bear is pregnant and very close to giving birth. She lets out a low, exhausted sound, and I understand immediately. She is not here to hunt. She is asking for help. I cannot let her inside the station, but I cannot leave her to die in this storm either. I grab my heavy Arctic coat, gloves, and emergency kit from the supply shelf. I take a deep breath and push open the metal door, stepping into the violent blizzard. The cold hits me like a wall, stealing the air from my lungs instantly. The polar bear does not move away. She stands before me, massive and trembling, her dark eyes locked on mine. I have worked with dangerous animals my entire life, but never this close to a wild polar bear. She turns slowly and begins walking away from the station, then stops and looks back at me. She wants me to follow her. Every instinct tells me this is madness, but I cannot ignore her plea. I follow the pregnant bear into the darkness, barely able to see through the blinding snow. We walk for what feels like an eternity, the wind cutting through my coat like knives. Finally, she stops at the entrance of a small ice cave carved into a frozen ridge. She tries to enter, but collapses at the entrance, her legs giving out beneath her weight. I rush to her side and see the truth. She is in labor, and the cubs are coming now. I have never delivered polar bear cubs before, but there is no one else here to help. I open my emergency kit and pull out a thermal blanket, spreading it beneath her massive body. The polar bear looks at me with exhausted eyes, her breath coming in short, rapid bursts. I remove my gloves and place my hands gently on her swollen belly, feeling the movement inside. The first cub begins to emerge, tiny and wet, covered in a thin membrane. I carefully clear the membrane from the cub's face, allowing it to take its first breath. The newborn is impossibly small, no bigger than my forearm, with thin white fur and closed eyes. The mother lifts her head weakly to smell her firstborn, then collapses back with exhaustion. Minutes later, a second cub begins to arrive, and I repeat the process with trembling hands. 2 tiny polar bear cubs now lie beside their mother, squeaking softly in the freezing air. I wrap the cubs gently in a small cloth from my kit to protect them from the deadly cold. The mother bear breathes heavily but steadily now, her dark eyes watching me care for her babies. I realize we cannot stay here. The blizzard is worsening, and the cubs need warmth to survive. I must get these cubs back to the station, but the mother cannot walk in her condition. I use my radio to send an emergency signal, praying someone will receive it through the storm. I make an impossible decision. I will carry the cubs to safety and return for the mother. I place the wrapped cubs inside my parka, against my chest, feeling their tiny hearts beating. I look into the mother's dark eyes and make a silent promise. I will come back for her. I step out of the ice cave and into the full fury of the blizzard. The cubs warm against my body. The wind is so strong I can barely stand, each step a battle against the frozen darkness. I lose all sense of direction, surrounded by nothing but white chaos and screaming wind. My legs grow heavy, my body temperature dropping dangerously despite the parka. I fall to my knees in the snow, exhausted, the cubs still pressed against my chest. Then I see it. A faint yellow glow in the distance. The station lights. I force myself to stand and stumble toward the light, using my last reserves of strength. I crash through the station door and collapse on the floor, the cubs still alive against my heart. I wake to warmth and the sound of the storm still howling outside. I'm lying on the station floor, wrapped in thermal blankets, the cubs nestled beside me. A voice crackles on the radio. A rescue team received my signal and is on the way. I sit up slowly, my body aching, and check the cubs. They are breathing, alive, safe. I hold them close, feeling their tiny bodies warm and moving against my hands. Hours later, the storm begins to fade, and a rescue helicopter lands near the station. I lead the team back to the ice cave, praying the mother survived the night. We find her still lying on the thermal blanket, weak but alive, her dark eyes opening as we approach. The veterinarian examines her carefully, exhausted and dehydrated, but she will recover. We transport the mother bear and her cubs to a wildlife rehabilitation center nearby. After 2 weeks of care, the mother polar bear is strong again, and her cubs are thriving. The day of release arrives. I stand on the frozen tundra as the transport crate opens. The mother bear steps out onto the ice, her 2 cubs tumbling out behind her. She turns to look at me one final time, her dark eyes holding a silent understanding. I raise my hand in farewell, my heart full knowing I gave this family a second chance. She turns and walks across the endless white ice, her cubs following closely, disappearing into the Arctic horizon.